decided we're going to have spaghetti for dinner tonight. And what kind of bread goes best with any kind of Italian meal? Well, of course, that's garlic bread. This is giving me the opportunity to try this new recipe I found that is actually a roast garlic and rosemary herb artisan type loaf. So we're going to make that for this meal. One of the things you have to do to prepare for this, though, is you have to roast an entire head of garlic. So that's the first step to do. Also note, it takes about 5 hours to do this from end to end. So if you're going to have this ready for your meal, you have to start pretty early in the day. So we're going to start out with this head of garlic we have. We're going to peel off the outer papery shell. We're going to cut off about a 1/4 inch off the top. We're going to put it in this tin, cover it in a little bit of olive oil, put it in the oven at 400 degrees for 40 to 50 minutes until it gets browned and soft. So we're going to go ahead and prep this. I've got the oven preheating, and first step, real quick, in an hour. Roast the garlic, then we'll get on with the bread making. Smells garlicky. The head chopped off. We're going to put it in the thing. Drizzle a little bit of olive oil, and it also says to make sure you use your finger to coat the entire top of the garlic. So a little drizzle of olive oil. And we will coat the top. And the next thing, piece of tin foil, and we'll sort of seal this up in a little cocoon. And there we have it, all ready to go. As soon as the oven's preheated, we'll pop it in for about 40 to 50 minutes. And then we will get on with the bread making. So we'll see you back then. All right, the oven's preheated. Now I did want to make a correction. This is going in for 30 to 40 minutes. So we'll check it in about 30 minutes and see what we think. But let's go ahead and get the garlic in. All right, now while the garlic is roasting, we're going to go ahead and start working on the bread itself. Now, it is very fragrant in here, which is pretty nice. Let's go ahead and list off the ingredients for this particular loaf, and then we'll get started activating the yeast. So the ingredients for this include 1 1/2 teaspoon of active dry yeast, 1 cup of warm water, 110 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit, 2 teaspoons of white sugar, 2 teaspoons of fine salt, 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, 2 1/2 cups of bread flour, 1 tablespoon of dried rosemary, 1/4 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of dried oregano, 1 head of roasted garlic, which we know where that is right now, extra olive oil for brushing on top and serving, and sprinkling salt on top. Sea salt, I don't really have any sea salt for that purpose, large grain salt, so I'm not sure I'll do that. And 1 clean water in a spray bottle. Now, that is for spraying during the baking process. I don't know why they had to be specific and say clean water. I'm sure I would not have used dirty water in there. So, the first thing we're going to do is, in a large bowl, sprinkle yeast into 1 cup of warm water. Now, again, we have to be careful not to have it too hot because it will kill the yeast. So, let's go ahead and I'm going to use some hot tap water, and then I'll put a thermometer in it to make sure. Now, one of the mistakes I made last time was I did the yeast, I don't know if it was a mistake, but I did the yeast in the mixing bowl, which is metal, and I put the water in there, and it probably almost instantly cooled it off, and I didn't feel like we got a good initial activation of the yeast, although it did rise very, very well. But so I just want to try to do it a little differently, so I'm going to put this in a stoneware bowl. Hopefully the heat won't be absorbed too much. I'll warm it up with the hot water before I finish off the hot water. So let's go ahead and get a warm bowl, and we'll put 1 cup of warm water in it. All right, so I've warmed the bowl, and here's a cup of warm water. Temperature. And open up the pack of yeast. All right, so this is sitting right at 100 degrees. Add the yeast, we'll work to get it activated. All right, so we have that all whisked together. Now the next thing we need to do is add in the sugar and salt, and then we'll let it sit for about 10 minutes. So we need 2 teaspoons of sugar, 2 teaspoons of salt. All right, we'll whisk that in. And now we'll set it aside and we'll measure out the rest of our ingredients. All right, so we've removed the roast garlic from the oven. It's not as brown as it showed in the picture, but it's soft and looks like it's ready to go, and it's certainly fragrant. So we're gonna let this cool because we have to before we finish peeling it. But at this point, we're gonna go ahead and start mixing up the rest of the dough. And so let's get started with that. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take the yeast, which has definitely started to foam, which is a good sign, and we're gonna put it in our mixing bowl. And the next thing we do is we add in the olive oil. So that was 3 tablespoons of olive oil. Now next it says to add the flour and knead. Now a lot of these recipes say to add the flour slowly, so I'm going to follow that just because it seems right. So we're going to put this in the the stand mixer, and start adding the flour until it starts to, turn into a dough ball, and then we'll knead it for about 10 minutes. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start mixing the flour in. We'll put the lid on when we actually go to knead, but in the meantime, I wanna be able to add the flour sort of slowly, so I don't need the lid on it. So let's go ahead and close this down. Start it up on slow. And we'll start adding the flour. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. Okay, we'll turn it up a little bit more so that we can start getting the flour off the sides. Alright, so it seems like it's doing a really good job picking all this up. We're going to leave it to knead for about 10 minutes now. And come back, then we'll mix in some of the other ingredients and let it knead some more. Alright, it's been kneading for about 10 minutes now. We're going to go on to the next step, which includes adding 1 tablespoon of dried rosemary, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. And then we'll knead for 5 more minutes. And while it's doing that final knead, we will also work to separate the garlic. All right, let's go ahead and get this next phase started. Now I'm not being stingy with the spices here. Maybe a little with the pepper. The oregano smells delicious. Okay, we'll start kneading and we'll start removing the garlic and getting that ready for the next phase. All right. Here's our roasted garlic. Easy. Alright, just a couple more minutes and we'll be hand kneading this with the garlic, and then we'll be getting ready for our first rise. Alright, we're done with the mixer. Let's go ahead and remove this bowl and we'll dump this out, and we'll start doing a little bit of hand kneading to knead in the roast garlic. Alright, a little flour down on the board, and here's our dough ball. The herby. Alright, now the next step says, finally, gently knead in the roast garlic by hand about 1 time together well at this point. So we're going to put the roast garlic in and start kneading it. It's very soft, so it should mix very well. So let's just get started. I don't know how to do this. I've never done it, so we're gonna hopefully not mess it up. I can feel the chunks of garlic in there, and I'm trying to squish them with my hand as I'm, to smash it as I'm doing the knead, because I don't want to have big chunks of garlic in there. I mean, I hear it's pretty tasty eating just as it is, but not really my style, I don't think. And the dough is, while there are chunks of garlic in it, it's getting really saturated with the garlic oils. All right. Now what we do is we sort of form this into a dough ball, and we put it in a bowl, a well-oiled bowl, and let it rise for 2 hours. I'm a little suspicious of it because, like I said, it's got big chunks of garlic in it, but my understanding is it's kind of how it's supposed to be to some extent. So I have an oiled bowl here. Just turning the dough over in it. Oops. Form a dough ball. As you see, there's chunks of garlic all through it. Okay. We're going to just drop it in the bowl. We're going to cover it with plastic wrap. Now I'm going to put it over on the stove where the oven was just warm, so it'll be a nice warm place. And we'll be back in about an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. We'll take a look at it. It's going to double in size, and then we'll do the next step. All right, let me go wash my hands. All right, the dough is risen. Take a look at that. Our next step on this is to turn this out onto a greased pan, and then cut a crisscross pattern across the top. I have a wooden bread lane, which is basically a razor blade on a stick, and I'm going to cut a crisscross pattern on it. After I'm going to turn it out, I'm going to punch it down, turn it out, whatever order, and form it up into a nice ball, and then cut it, and then cover it up and let it rise again for another hour. So let's go ahead and do that. Did you hear it? Let's go ahead and cut it. Doesn't seem to be cutting very well. Well, I got a crisscross pattern on it. It doesn't look like it's going to be very pretty though, so I'm going to try to form it up again just so it looks nice and round. And then we're going to cut. So, just real quick. Alright, well, I think that's as pretty as it's going to get. So we're going to take the bowl we just had it rise in, we're just going to cover it up. We're going to put it back on the stove and let it rise for 1 hour. And we'll see you back then. At that point, we'll be ready to put in the oven. So exciting. All right, we're done rising. Take a look at this. That looks pretty amazing, right? Okay, so the next step is we gently brush the top with olive oil, and then we sprinkle a little more rosemary on top and a little bit of salt, and then we're going to put it in and start cooking it. Oven's preheated, everything's ready to go. 375. Then we'll bake it for 15 minutes. We will then spritz it with the water, bake it another 15 minutes, spritz it again, and crank the temp up to 425 and keep a close eye on it because we don't want it to burn. All right, let's get it in the oven. Minutes. All right, it's been 15 minutes. Let's go ahead and spritz the water on this. I don't know why we're doing this, but that's the instructions, so we're following them. All right, 15 more minutes, and then we will crank it up and brown the top. Crank it up to 425. Almost there. All right, it's been another 15 minutes. We're gonna spritz it again. We're gonna crank up the temp to 425 and keep a very close eye on it so it doesn't burn. We're almost there. All right, I think it's time. Let's go ahead and take it out and let's see how it looks. I just can't wait. I'm dying. Oh my goodness. Look at that. All right, so I made some olive oil, basil, parsley, oregano, rosemary, lemon, garlic, and a little bit of red pepper dipping sauce. So we're gonna go ahead and dig in. Victoria, you wanna do the honors?
Yes, please. Ready? Get out. So good. So good.
All right, I'm excited to try to get this. And the bottom is nice and crispy.
Mm-hmm. The crispiness is perfect.
Bon appetit. That is super. There's nothing better than fresh bread.
That's amazing.
So crispy, but so light and fluffy on the inside, and the garlic almost took my breath away at the end, the aftertaste, which is not a bad thing. So, there you have it. Rustic rosemary and roasted garlic artisan bread. It's good stuff. Give it a try. That was my first try, and it came out pretty okay. All right, well, we'll see you guys later.